Welcome to The More Perfect Union, a podcast about the joy we get from American politics, or as we call it, real debate without the hate. I'm Rebecca Cushmiter. I'm your liberal Democrat coming from Kensington, Maryland.
I'm DJ McGuire, your Republican in exile from Suffolk, Virginia.
I'm Kevin Kelton, your moderate Democrat from Los Angeles, California.
And I'm Greg Matuzak, that other liberal Democrat from Cincinnati, Ohio, that you all have been hearing so much about.
Indeed, with over 300,000 downloads to date, The More Perfect Union is one of the fastest rising podcasts on iTunes. And we can also be found on iHeartRadio and, of course, at our website, moreperfectunionpodcast.com. Well, it wouldn't be January without the Golden Globe Awards. And I guess now it wouldn't be the Golden Globe Awards without a huge political to-do in one of the acceptance speeches. Meryl Streep.
Did something happen? I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, very funny. Meryl Streep decided the best way to accept her Lifetime Achievement Award was to go after Donald Trump for something that, frankly, Donald Trump deserved criticism for. But managed to do it in a way that essentially hardened all feelings like Epixy on wood and ensured that nobody would actually change their minds. At least that's my opinion here.
Yeah, well, interesting point. You know, I hadn't seen the speech because I was out to dinner, so I was exposed to it by all of the response to it on Facebook. Then I finally saw it, and yeah, it was a very touching and moving speech, but you have to wonder whether it did more harm to the Democratic or to the opposition position than it helped. It brought up a very old issue, which, again, I really resent what he did with the gentleman whose name escapes me, who was the news reporter he mocked. But, you know, it's an 8-month or a 10-month-old issue. Like DJ said, it's not going to change anybody's minds. And I'm starting to come to the place where I think Donald Trump might be playing us all. I know I'm not the first person to say that, but I'm thinking that maybe this man is just smarter than all of us. And he, you know, because I knew that he was going to tweet about her overnight, and he was going to say something absurd, which he did when he called her one of the most overrated actresses in Hollywood, which is absurd that you have to wonder. He must know it's absurd. And he's pulling us in. He's reeling us in with his absurdity.
Well, hang on, Kevin. Let's be honest here. Donald Trump may not know Hollywood, but nobody knows overrated better than he does.
Yeah, well, okay.
See, you know, okay, a couple of things. One, last night I was wearing corduroys, in case anyone was asking.
Yes.
Mostly from the Pillow family. You may have heard about corduroy pillows. They're making headlines.
Ha 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 ha.
Thank you. But two, it's not so much what Meryl Streep said. All liberals love Meryl Streep. She's fabulous. Everything she does. I have a video of her blowing her nose, and it's awesome. But that's not it. It's the fact that Donald Trump, our soon-to-be president, felt the need to respond by tweeting. And this is the new normal. This is the part that really kind of, yes, we understand that this is a 10-month issue that Meryl Streep brought, and that doesn't bother me. And, yes, Midwest versus East Coast and whatnot and West Coast, that's fine. I get that too. And that doesn't really bother me. But the fact that the president of the United States, the soon-to-be president of the United States, says the new normal will be, if you deem to make fun of me or if you call me out in a public forum, I am going to tweet personally and say that you're overrated or that you're a loser and that I'm going to take time out of reading, security briefs. That's disturbing to me. And everyone's like, what are you going to do? This is the new normal.
Well, hang on, Greg. Would you rather have him engage in Twitter wars or actually running the country?
Well, that's a good point. My concern came with a response, and this is a response I've heard any time a celebrity says anything about politics, which is actors shouldn't talk about politics, musicians shouldn't talk about politics, X groups shouldn't talk about politics. And in the current environment, I don't like hearing that because it's very easy to change out celebrities shouldn't talk about politics and make it women shouldn't talk about politics. I don't want anyone to be attempting to silence anyone else. Meryl Streep can say what she wants. Donald Trump can tweet what he wants. That's the American way, but we shouldn't be trying to exclude certain groups from discourse. We don't have gatekeepers on free speech in America. It's as simple as that. So that's what's really been alarming to me all day.
I'm sorry, Rebecca. You said we don't have gatekeepers. When was the last time you were at a college campus?
Oh, come on.
Oh.
I want
There
to say
seem to be quite a few of them in some of the institutes of higher
yes,
learning.
those liberal dins of iniquity.
And by the way, didn't we all remember the rule from the 2008 campaign? Only plumbers are allowed to talk about politics.
Right, exactly. Well, that's why I wanted to come back to what Rebecca just mentioned, because, the right has been doing this for the last 15 years. Fox News has always been saying, how dare so-and-so go on the air and talk about politics, whether it was Sean Penn or whether it was Janine Garofalo for a while. That was the big one. It always bothered me, especially since they love to bring on,
Ted Nugent.
Ted Nugent.
Ted Nugent.
Who's the actor from Coach?
Craig
tall
T.
guy.
Nelson?
Craig T. Nelson.
Craig T. Nelson.
They love to bring on Craig T. Nelson.
Right, the guy who said that he was on food stamps but never got a handout from the government.
Exactly, right. But whenever
Yes.
whenever a liberal actor speaks out, they say, what are actors doing? Why don't they just do what they do best? Ladies and gentlemen, we now have a television host who is president of the United States. So that argument should be forever put behind the gate that the gatekeepers are keeping.
But this is actually something that and I think in a lot of cases the right has sort of lost the script on this one. The reason why it was so easy to criticize celebrities and mock them when they weighed in on politics, usually from the left side of the spectrum, was because they did it usually in such an uninformed manner. It was so easy to call them out on their mistakes. Things like what you talked about, what Craig T. Nelson did. Just though on the left side, Raquel Welch saying that there were 52 states was one that I remember from 1990. And there are so many times where actresses and actors who are very, very good at their craft, the reason they seem so foolish in talking about politics is because they don't actually know what they're talking about. What I think a lot of people on the right have done now is they have confused it so that when you have folks who do know what they're talking about, when you have folks who are actors but who actually do have a decent breadth of knowledge of politics and that they weigh in, most folks on the right just treat them like the actors from the 1980s or earlier who tripped over themselves and got their words wrong or got their facts wrong and went, oh, well, they're all Hollywood celebrities. They don't understand the way the world really works. It makes
Like
you look
Reagan.
foolish. It makes you look foolish when you deal with celebrities who actually do understand the way the world really works.
Listen, I'm not saying that
you
there
end
are
up with
no
this kind of situation.
celebrities. I'm not saying that there aren't celebrities who are uninformed, but I just think that we do a disservice to our entire culture when we disparage our artists like that. Oh, he's just an actor. Oh, she's just a singer. And I didn't hear the Raquel Welch thing. It might have been a misspeak.
He's agreeing with you.
I'm agreeing with you in that you end up with a situation where you just paint the entire profession with a broad brush that it doesn't deserve. And in a lot of cases, the American people have actually noticed this, and it's one of the reasons why the right has had trouble over the last 10 years, is because they have taken what were very specific and time-sensitive arguments in, say, the 1980s and the 1990s, and we have turned them, because I don't call myself a conservative, although I call myself a conservative Democrat, we've taken those time-sensitive arguments and we've made them seem broad and timeless, and the voters look at us like, what, are you kidding me? That doesn't make sense now. It didn't make sense when you said it 5 years ago. It may have made sense 20 or 25 years ago, but we don't live in that world anymore. And people just keep falling into their patterns, and that's what you're going to get. You're going to get Meryl Streep attacked, even though she said something that made a lot of sense. And you're getting people who defend Meryl Streep who decide the best way to defend her is to basically attack anyone who lives between the Rockies and the Hudson. Not all of her defenders have done that, but enough of them have done it to basically ensure that the polarization continues when it probably wasn't even something that Meryl Streep wanted to do.
Well, speaking of polarization or polarizing figures, and speaking of speeches, how's this for a segue? Barack Obama is going to be giving his quote-unquote farewell speech or farewell address in a few hours. In Chicago. Yeah. And what do you anticipate hearing from the president and the soon-to-be ex-president? And what would you like to hear him say?
Well, what I would
I
like
want it to be one
hear
of
him
those
say-
sketches where he has his angry black translator. I want a total comedy
Key and
bit.
Peele, yeah.
I would like it to be the guy from Half Baked standing behind him, just saying, F you, F you, F you, you're cool, F you, drop the mic and leave. That's what I want. But, I think in all actuality, the first half, he'll do like what many presidents have done on their farewell address. He'll highlight the things that they've accomplished. He's a great speaker, but I think we'll also see, and this will be interesting, he will do a couple, slight nods like, hey, you've got to watch this Donald guy. And it won't be real heavy, but he will say, keep an eye on this one because he's shady as hell.
I think I think Greg's right. We're going to hear, a very standard speech, at least at the top of it. Is what we've done. This is how we've come. I hope he brags on his jobs record because that's freaking amazing. Even though I never really want to credit presidents with jobs growth, that doesn't seem to be that much in their control. But I think the second half we're going to see our community organizer in chief, and I think I think he's been messaging us for about a month, and I think he's going to message harder. And sort of put us on notice about how to operate as a grassroots resistance to the Trump administration.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think it's going to be so much knocks at Trump as just more like rallying the party and rallying those of us on the left to feel good about where we are going to be for the next 4 years. Not to feel like we've been defeated, not to feel like all is lost, but to have that same optimism that we had when he was running for the first time.
And to be fair, if he does anything like that, he risks the speech being a failure. I'm serious, because presidential farewells have a certain cadence, they have a certain structure, and that structure does include warnings about the future. From Dwight Eisenhower warned about the military-industrial complex. Ronald Reagan warned about the erosion of patriotism in this country. In fact, Reagan's phrase in his farewell address was, "I know these things are fraught with warnings, and here is mine." Barack Obama has plenty of room to issue whatever anxieties he has about the future, many of which would be well-deserved. If he frames them in the traditional historical context of presidential warnings, he will be fine, and it will indeed inspire a dissident movement within the country, or for a better term for this country, a strong opposition. But if he makes it sound too partisan, if he makes it sound too ideological, it will fall on deaf ears. He has the opportunity to do what he wants to do, and what I think we all want him to. What we all want him to do. Our missing participants probably wouldn't want him to do it, but he can do it within the standard historical context of what these farewell addresses are. They traditionally contain warnings. They traditionally contain the anxieties of the outgoing administrator, and he can, in fact, present that in the standard way. He doesn't have to go off and give a different farewell address. It can be a standard farewell address. And if he does it as a standard farewell address, he's a much better chance of succeeding. And the Democrats who follow him have a much better chance of succeeding if he does that, I think.
Okay, so of course tomorrow he'll be competing for coverage, news coverage, with the confirmation hearings that are happening or starting in the Senate for the president-elect's cabinet nominees. And we have a pretty heavy week of confirmation hearings, starting with Jeff Sessions, and who else is on tomorrow on day one?
Tillerson and
Tillerson, I think,
couple
is the
others.
second day. Yeah.
Tillerson the second day. It is a cluster right now with these cabinet confirmations. Right now, they're behind on getting their ethics paperwork filled out with the Independent Office of Government Ethics. I know. Can you believe there's a lack of ethics right now? What a shocker. But it has to do with their financial disclosures and conflicts of interest, and there are laws that say that you can't vote on these guys till they've gotten the paperwork done, and the paperwork is just way, way, way behind. And it's actually getting kind of humorous up on the Hill. Chuck Schumer just sent a letter to Mitch McConnell demanding that the ethics paperwork be done before a vote, only it's not an original letter. It is the letter McConnell sent to Obama, or that McConnell sent to Harry Reid in 2009 regarding Obama's cabinet picks. And
great.
Chuck Schumer literally just crossed out Harry Reid's address and wrote Mitch McConnell, and then at the bottom crossed out Harry Reid's signature and signed Chuck Schumer.
That's great.
So I'm kind of loving Chuck Schumer tonight. Yeah, I also just heard that Cory Booker is going to break with tradition and testify against Jeff Sessions, which is nearly unheard of. I can't even think of a time another sitting senator testified against a colleague in a confirmation hearing. It's been, God, I heard the stat earlier on NPR and I can't remember it now, but it's been decades, like 40 years since a sitting senator wasn't confirmed for a cabinet post he was nominated for. There's almost no chance that Sessions is going to be voted down. Our esteemed colleagues, as senators would say, get their seats. So. And there's a lot of resistance to Jeff Sessions on the left because this is a guy who was too racist to be a judge in the Reagan years. And you got to be really racist in the 80s for that to happen. And, Tillerson's another one. Right now, there's some headlines floating around that ExxonMobil was doing, had shady quasi-legal dealings with Iran during a period of sanctions. And ExxonMobil's like, no, it was legal. And the reason we didn't disclose it is because it was only about $50 million. It's totally insignificant. But it was, with a shell company that was offshore and you have to have an MBA to fully understand the technicalities. But
but odds are it's probably something that was perfectly legalized after the sanctions were lifted in the Iran deal from 2015, which is probably why it's not getting a lot of traction.
Yeah, it's not getting a lot of traction. Also, it was just revealed tonight. It was a USA Today breaking headline maybe 3 hours ago. And, I think Tillerson's on a bubble. I think there's a chance that we could see Tillerson fail to come out of committee. I've actually been doing a little rabble raising on that one myself today. I'm so opposed to this guy. I don't think big oil should be making our foreign policy. And I have a problem with CEOs who've spent their career, trying to stay within the margins of the law without honoring the law any more than they have to. But there are a few foreign relations committee members who've been a little skeptical of Tillerson who aren't Democrats, specifically Marco Rubio, Rand Paul, and Jeff Flake. Jeff Flake has a primary opponent already, and it's the same woman who gave McCain some headaches during primary season in 2016. And, I've been urging people to call Flake's office and say, listen, I'm going to donate to this lady if you pass this guy out of committee. I don't know if it'll make a difference, but it's certainly making me feel better. It's kind of my attempt at being a Koch brother to, put about $25 into an Arizona primary race.
Is that primary challenger? Hang on, Greg. Is that primary challenger a Trumpster?
Yes, she's absolutely bat guano crazy from what I've heard. Her name is Kelly Ward, and she's nuts. Okay. She's a state legislator from Arizona, which probably tells you everything you need to know about her.
So out of curiosity,
that doesn't say enough. I've known state legislators, and while, there actually are quite a few who do deal from a full deck as well. That may surprise people. My question was: is Kelly Ward a Trumpster? Is she part of the Trump proletariat? Did she go after McCain from a Trump perspective? That's my question. Because if she did, then Flake is going to go after Tillerson no matter what anybody tells him to do.
You know what? I don't know enough about what her message was during the race. Flake was anti-Trump. So if she's running a primary against him, she is pro-Trump.
See, the thing is, and this is, I think, the mistake that Democrats are making. If you want to try to score some ethical scalps, okay, that's fine. I'm certainly not going to say that Trump's nominees are pure as the driven snow, because they're not. That's obvious. But in terms of building a coalition that can defeat his reelection, what you need to do is you need to go after him on issues. And I think where he is most vulnerable is with his Commerce Secretary and his trade representative. His international trade group of officials and advisors are essentially going to tear up the last 70 years of the Western international order. And no one is pushing back on that. Everyone is just following. This is part of how Donald Trump has essentially transformed the Republican Party from a party that attempted to limit government and maximize freedom to a party that responded to the Democrats' big government message with their own big government message: protectionism, nativism, combining to what I call privilegism. It shows up in the trade folks. It shows up with his trade representative. It shows up with his Commerce Secretary, Wilbur Ross. Those are where you can actually show a difference to the American people and say, look, what Donald Trump wants to do with government is not in the best interest of the planet or this country, and here is why from an economic perspective. That can peel off the voters that are just in deep denial about who Donald Trump is in North Carolina and Florida and Arizona and Texas. Those are the places where we can do well. Those are the places with Johnson voters across the country who are largely convinced, who would not vote for Hillary Clinton because in their mind, Hillary Clinton was just as bad as Donald Trump is, and they probably didn't believe him when he talked his protectionist rantings. That's where he, I think, can be politically vulnerable. And I think the fact that no one is talking about Wilbur Ross and no one is talking about the trade representative is very, very problematic, because that is an issue where if the American people can actually understand what is going on, then they will reject Trump, and it will be Trump voters who do it. Going after Tillerson and going after Sessions, yes, it helps with the base. And yeah, Sessions and Tillerson are not exactly nice guys. But in terms of building a coalition to beat Trump in 2020, those wouldn't have been the battles that I would pick first.
Well, I think from a political perspective and from the perspective of a strategy to start thinking about the 2018 and the 2020 race, I think your analysis is pretty spot on. But I think there's another level that's going on here as well, which is Donald Trump is such a unique animal, and I don't use that in the derogatory sense.
It would apply if you did.
But it would apply if I did. that there's a psychological component to when and where to obstruct him or to throw resistance against him. Because, I agree. I don't think there's a chance in hell that Sessions won't get confirmed. But if you can throw enough flack at Trump and have him, listen, if Meryl Streep could do it from the stage of the Golden Globes, Chuck Schumer can do it, and Elizabeth Warren can do it, and Sanders and the rest of them can do it from the Senate, just enough to get this guy starting his presidency with all of these hot personal clashes and Twitter wars and making mistakes. And I think if he comes out of the gate making some incredible errors, which frankly he's probably going to do, I think that will slow the momentum of this administration more than strategically trying to figure out how to show people that his trade positions are not really what they want it to be. Does that make sense, TJ?
It does. From a tactical perspective, that does make sense. I don't think it makes sense from a strategic perspective, but it's only 2020. It's only 2017. We have time to build a strategy.
Exactly.
From a tactical perspective, I can see the wisdom there.
Well, and I'm coming at this from the perspective of, oh, dear God, what is this man going to do to our relationships globally? And he's going to screw us for generations. And I'm talking about Tillerson, not just Trump.
Yeah.
And that's why he's become my target, in sort of my personal activism for the first part of the almost Trump administration. He's the guy that offends me the most. Not to say the others don't offend me enormously. The foreign relations thing really strikes fear in my heart.
Now, let me just change the subject for a second. Presidents have had senior advisors through the ages. Clark Clifford was a well-known senior advisor to both Kennedy and Johnson. But Jared Kushner is going to be taking the title of senior advisor. Should a man's son-in-law be his senior advisor?
No.
There are nepotism laws that are supposed to prevent that from happening, and I don't understand exactly what mechanism the Trump administration has worked out to make themselves exempt from that. I know Newt Gingrich was talking about, just pardon yourself later.
Do those nepotism laws apply to just nebulous titles like advisor? I mean, obviously he wouldn't. He wouldn't
No,
apply.
they should apply to all
As-
hiring, not just confirmable.
Well, as we all learned from 50 years ago, they don't apply to the title of Attorney General of
That's
the United States.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that is true. That is true.
We're talking about Bobby Kennedy for those who don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's right. People wouldn't actually know that. Oh, thank you. Now I feel old,
For the
too.
people on the college campuses hiding behind their gatekeepers listening to this.
Let me say this. In 1960, there was a president named John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Look him up on Google. It's a fascinating story.
He ends up okay, though, right?
Yeah. It all turns out fine in the end.
We can loop this right back to the Golden Globes. There's a whole movie about his wife.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yes,
thank goodness.
his
You had me scared there.
wife.
For a
You
second.
don't even have to read.
Oh, thank goodness. I thought I'd have to open a book.
Yeah, no, that would be dreadful.
In any event, what I found interesting in all of this, and this just may be my weird penchant for trivia, Jared Kushner's lawyer and chief flack defending him on this is none other than Jamie Gorelick. Does anybody else remember Jamie Gorelick?
Isn't she? Wait. Let me try this. The Clinton administration, Justice Department wrote the memo. Am I on target here? Is this who we're talking about?
So far, so good.
That
So far, so good.
supposedly created the wall between the FBI and the CIA?
The FBI and the rest of the intelligence community.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Jamie Gorelick, who then went on to, I believe it was Fannie Mae, and made millions as Fannie Mae, with lots of help, created the housing bubble that blew up in 2008. She was very much in the crosshairs of Republicans for much of the aughts. Now suddenly, because she's Jared Kushner's lawyer, it's all good. It just is everything about how corrupted the Republican Party has become. Rebecca talks about it. She's hinted about it in foreign policy. Stalinism and Brezhnevism was terrible, but Putinism is A-okay. And now, when Jamie Gorelick worked for Bill Clinton, she was terrible. But now that she works for Donald Trump's son-in-law, she's wonderful. Julian Assange. I mean, you name it, a whole list of people who the right considered enemies on principle, who are now okay and friends because their principal supporter is Donald Trump. It's just sickening. It's sickening all around.
Yeah. Jeez, go figure. Hypocrisy in Washington. Go figure. So, so there's I'm jumping ahead a little more than a week now, but the day after President-elect Trump becomes President of the United States, Trump, POTUS, women across the country will be marching on Washington and in various cities. Anybody here planning to march?
Nope.
No. Rebecca?
I know. I'm less than 10 miles from the Capitol. I am a woman. I don't know if anybody's noticed. I'm a very liberal woman. I'm not planning to march. Part of it is strictly practical reasons. Before the march was organized, the day after the election, I texted my husband and I said, we got to get out of town during the inauguration. We have actually gone to inaugural balls the past two inaugurations, a bipartisan thing that pertained to my husband's area of policy expertise.
La la la.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
I'm impressed.
I know. It's just a fun thing. His company buys a table. And I didn't want to go. I didn't want to be part of it. I knew his office was going to be shut down because of the security perimeters in town. I knew my son's school was going to be closed. And I'm like, let's just get the hell out of town and not even be part of this mess. And I think the march has a place. I think demonstrations like that have value. I think a show of mass is important. However, it's cold and I'm not young. And,
So you know people in town. Do you know people who are planning on going? Like it's like all
oh my God, yes. Everyone I know is going. Daily,
Except
people are
you.
telling me, "Hey,
Except
did you see the
you.
email about where to meet?" I'm not. Lots and lots of people are going. I'm just the old curmudgeon who would rather call Congress and raise hell that way than put my feet to the sidewalk.
Have you personally lied to friends and said, "Oh yeah, I'm going," and then just are planning on not showing up? Oh, okay. You just haven't done it.
No,
to
I'm very upfront about it.
If there was a march here in Cincinnati, which I'm going to probably guarantee you, I don't think there is because it's Cincinnati.
I thought it's in every
but I
city.
will check.
Yeah.
It's cold
every
there
city.
too. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not a good time of year for marching.
It will be in Cincinnati, just like in June. When
Well, here's my excuse for not going. I live in Los Angeles. You know, the parking in Los Angeles on a Thursday morning at 9 a.m. is $25. Do you know how far away and how much I'm going to have to pay to park, to take a bus, to take a trolley, to take a shuttle to get to this thing will be? I mean, I'd rather travel to the Bahamas during, winter break than try to get to this thing. It's going to be that much of a hassle.
Really?
Which is, it probably, it says something about us, but yeah.
I take it back.
I'm sure Rosa Parks somewhere is saying to me, are you crazy, woman, that you're letting all of this get in the way? But I'm sorry, Mrs. Parks. I'll do better next time.
So, with that in mind, thank you for listening. Please like us on Facebook at facebook.com/More Perfect Union Podcast and share our link on your Facebook timeline so your friends can discover us as well. And if you enjoy political debates and would like to be a part of ours, join us on Facebook in our political discussion group, Open Fire. We're all there, and we'd love to see you there too. Until next time, Greg, what do you have to say to sign off?
Well, I was going to say that Kasich's still an asshole, but I was hoping you'd sing with me. I know all the lyrics to I Am Woman. If you want, I can do that too.
Let's do it. I am woman.
I am woman. Hear me roar.
In numbers, DJ.
In numbers too big. In numbers too big to ignore. And I know
for this fellas.
too much to go back and pretend. Come on, people. We all know this one.
We're just like the fifth dimension.
No one's ever gonna keep me down again.
Okay,
Seen the lights go out on Broadway.
Now we have to pay about $10,000 in royalties.
Oh, I know.